Hello everyone, I'm Dave Thomas, and today I am building the Quest Planet Probe model rocket. Now this has its stability and its recovery simply due to its cone shape here. This is not going to launch very far up because it does have a lot of drag, but that same drag allows it to come back down safely without a parachute or streamer. So let's go ahead and open this up. And we'll pull out our instructions here. I feel things inside of it, so let's make sure we don't lose anything. Okay, so this has not very many parts. Alright, so we've got this cardstock sheet that contains a centering ring, and then these, we'll call them braces. They're kind of like internal fins. Alright, and then we've got here, this is the main part of the rocket. Okay, so this will become that cone shroud that is mainly what you see there. You can see up inside it there that it does have those fins, but as I said, that's most of the stability is due to the cone shape here. Now, what I'm going to do first of all with this is place it under some really heavy books to help flatten it out, and then I'll come back and we'll continue with the rest of the parts list. Alright, so the shroud material there is now sitting under my 1983 copy of the Chemistry and Physics Handbook. Alright, so we've got our aero shroud sheet, our motor mount tube, blue thrust ring, launch lug, centering ring and fins, instructions sheet, and the launch procedure sheet I took out and set aside. Alright, so this was just holding the shroud together, but this is a nice clear tube. It looks like maybe about a BT60, maybe a little bit better. I'm going to put this in my body tubes box in case I can find a use for it. Alright, so we will go ahead and start with the motor tube here. Alright, now that tube marking guide will need to cut out of the same sheet of cardstock that the shroud is in. So I'm going to go do that off camera here and bring it right back. Okay, so I've cut out my tube marking guide here. I'm going to wrap this around. Alright, and where it says tab there, oh, I need to cut this around this way. Here we go. Okay, and then I'm just going to take a small piece of tape, set that on there. Alright, so just to be safe here, normally I would put my launch lugs in line with my engine clip, and that's where that would be, but I'm a little concerned that this could get in the way of each other, so I'm going to offset that a little bit and go ahead now and put my tick marks in here. Alright, now for the launch lug line I'm going to write in LL there so I know it's not a fin. And then for the fin lines we'll just make a tick on either side here. Alright, then we can just slip that back off. The instructions show using a door frame here. Door frames don't fit under my camera very well, but I have this Estes tube marking guide, which is one of the best investments I've ever made in model rocketry supplies. I highly recommend it. It's basically just a bunch of straight lines with different heights. Alright, so now we're just going to run a line. Whoop, that was awful. run a straight line. There we go. Next we add the engine block, and what they're showing here is putting a bead of glue inside the tube, and normally I would do that. You normally put glue inside the tubes and then slide things into them. But with engine blocks, if you do it that way, if you have excess glue, it'll get pushed down into the tube where it could interfere with proper seating of the motor. Okay, so instead I'm going to glue the ring here, and this is marked with a little pre-cut notch where normally an engine clip would go, so I'm going to stick it in that end. Alright, and then that needs to be flush. Mine went in too far there. Right, so I'm going to remove some of that glue and just press it down now. Okay, so now we've got a flush engine block. And we're going to let that dry for a few minutes before going on. Now while the engine mount is drying, we'll go ahead and pop the fins out here. And if they don't pop out readily, just take your hobby knife and cut through the little nubs there. And then if you want to, you can go ahead and sand those little nubs off. I'm using some 220 grit sandpaper here. You can even sand the edges a little bit if you want. It's not going to make that much difference to the flight of this particular rocket. Okay, but especially the root edge here, which is going to be this edge, it'd be a good idea to sand that just so you've got a good gluing surface there. We'll go ahead and cut out this piece too. It just kind of pops off on mine. Alright. Well, this will be the centering ring that will go up inside the shroud. Okay, so now what we're going to do is apply the fins, and they'll go on the opposite end of where we've got the engine block there. So these are going to go on fin lines, and the aft edge of the root edge should be flush like that. Now they have a technique tip up here called a double glue joint, and I use something similar. Theirs is a little bit different, but you can use either one of these. What I do is I'll put a thin bead of glue on the root edge here. Alright, and in this case more is not better. Alright, then I'm going to touch this along the line, bring it back off, and I'm going to let these sit and dry for about 60 seconds, and then we'll come back and put them back on. Now my glue has had a chance to get tacky, and so we can put this back on, and it will tend to stay on there by itself. Now we want to look down the length here, make sure it's perpendicular, alright, and straight. Now if you have it and want to use it here, I've got a fin alignment guide. This is 3D printed. Apogee Components has cardboard ones in virtually all standard body tube sizes. Alright, so I can just slide this over like that, and that'll help keep it straight. Let that dry for at least 15 minutes, and then go on and we'll do the other two, and I'll do those off camera. While the glue on the fins is drying, I'm going to go ahead and cut out the shroud here. You can use a hobby knife or scissors. The hobby knife is going to work better for straight edges here, so I'll go ahead and do that with my hobby knife. Now on this part, make sure that you get the whole tab here, not just the shroud itself. Alright, and now I'm going to take scissors to cut out all the rounded part here. Okay, now they refer to an alignment guide here, which as far as I know is just this. Alright, so when we run this together, we just want to make it so that gap closes there. Alright, so for this we're going to use some wood glue, and much like we did with the fins, we don't want a big heavy amount here, as it'll just take longer to dry and it'll have more opportunity to come undone. Alright, so we just want a thin film there. Okay, and I'm going to take a moment here very quickly to wipe the excess glue off my fingers. Alright, now we're going to put this apart, put this together. Okay, trying to keep everything aligned here. Now it says that the glue is going to grab quickly. And then we'll turn it over. And here we can be a little less careful about the glue. Alright, so we're just going to press all that down. Check the other side. Okay, that all came apart up here. We don't want that. So I guess I'm going to hold this here for a few minutes until that glue sets up enough that I can let go of it. The glue on the fins is set, but not fully dry yet, but it should be enough that I can apply the launch lug. So we're just going to apply, again, a thin bead here to the launch lug, and then we're going to put that along launch lug line there. Alright, and use the line to make sure that we're nice and straight. Alright, and if you've got a little excess like mine does here, have it extend above the tube there rather than below it. Alright, and we should have an equal space on either side between the launch lug and the fins. Alright, so once again we're going to let this dry. The glue on my fins and launch lug has set enough that I can work with this now. And so next our centering ring is going to go over the launch lug and the engine mount tube and is going to rest on top of the fins there. Okay, so everything looks like it's going to fit. So I'm going to take a little more glue here and we're going to make a ring just above it so that when the ring is pushed down it goes through the glue. This does not need to be really heavy. We can also put a little bit right here on the tops of the fins. Alright. Now, after we do this and the glue sets, the instructions have us put in fillets. If you want, you could put the fin fillets and the launch lug fillets in first, although the launch lug fillets might get in the way of this, so use your judgment there. Alright, we're going to push that down into the glue. Now I can't get my finger in there as easily. So here I'm going to use an applicator here to kind of smooth all this glue around, kind of make it into a fillet there. Okay, and at this point we can usually safely put in the rest of the fillets now. Now these are primarily for strength. These aren't going to do much for the aerodynamics of the rocket. Okay, now if you got little fingers, you can go in and smooth these with your finger. My fingers are kind of fat, so I'm just going to use this applicator. And again, if you've got glue that's coming up like that, it's not a big deal if you don't take it off. Because again, these are for strength, not for aerodynamics. Because most of this is going to be covered with the shroud anyway. Alright, we're going to let all those set for a good 10 or 15 minutes at least before we install the shroud. My glue fillets have set, although they're not completely cured yet. And according to the instructions, they're going to have us paint this whole thing black. Alright, now if you don't care about painting it, you can go ahead and go on to the next step. And just in brief, I'm not going to glue it yet, but what you're going to do is put a bead of glue along the top edge here of the motor mount and along the edge here, and you may want to put some down here as well, because this little slope right here is where the shroud comes in contact with the fins. Alright, and then this is going to go up inside and come out like that. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and paint this off camera, and it'll probably be a day or two before I'll be able to put that on there. Probably one day. Here's the interior portion of the rocket, and I have painted this with 2 coats of black primer and then a coat of gloss black paint. I do notice I've got a couple little runs in here. I didn't do a really, I just did a quick job on this. And that's not going to be noticeable, since the only part you're going to see coming out of the rocket are the very tips of these fins. I'm going to let this dry for 24 hours before we mount it onto the shroud. My paint is dry now, and we can get ready to put this in. So first I'm going to dry fit this. Alright. About like that. Okay, now underneath here, the shroud is coming in contact with the centering ring and also with this little slope portion here. Alright, so that's where the glue is going to go as well. So in preparation for that, I'm going to take my emery board here. Alright, and I'm just going to roughen this. Whoop, come back here. Just going to roughen this all the way around so that we've got a good bonding surface for the glue. Right, generally you don't glue painted surfaces, so we'll just remove a little bit of the paint. And then for the top, I'm going to actually put it on the inside of the shroud here. And I'm going to use an applicator for that. I'm not able to get the glue down inside. So here I want this to be right inside the edge. Alright, now if we've done all of this right, everything should mate together here. And we should have good glue contact. Do there, and just wipe off a little bit around the top if needed. Alright, we're going to come down here. Got a little bit of excess there, we'll get rid of that. So most of these glue joints look okay. This one here, that'll be good. Alright, so there is our planet probe. Overall, this didn't take too long. The longest part was actually just doing the painting and waiting for that. I hope you had fun building this with me. Have a great launch and a safe recovery, and please stay tuned for more of my videos.